Call the September 19th meeting to order. First point of order is we have minutes from our August 15th meeting. Has everybody seen these minutes?
And would they be accepted as written?
Thank you very much.
Second.
Any comments, any adjustments, any changes? Okay, there being no changes to the minutes, then, or no amendments to the minutes, then all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Dr. Chard, good evening.
You could be one of the applicants.
All right.
Okay.
I must have something I need to apply for.
Here, have a seat.
Thank you.
Normally at this point we would affirm interested parties, but it appears there are no interested parties present, so there will be no affirmation of interested parties. Brian, was the meeting properly warned?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
We have a crowd here.
Does any member of the board have any conflict of interest or ex parte communication to advise us on? There being none, I shall move forward to the public hearings. Application 2011-129. There is a request for continuance to our next meeting. Looking for a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion proposed and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1. I call application 2011-131, Jenna and Donald Huell. The applicant has contacted you, Brian, and advised that they will not be attending, or they're proposing to attend, or
They will not be participating.
they will not be participating.
Are they withdrawing their application, or they're just choosing not to attend to present live testimony and they're going to rely upon the written submission? Okay.
So we have an application for conditional use in the residential district for keeping of animals. This is something I just wanted to pick up. This is an undeveloped lot, correct? Or it's adjacent to a lot that they also own.
That's correct.
It sounds like it's also very close to a neighbor's house.
And this was not administratively approved. Was there any approval for the existing livestock?
No, there wasn't. The application was to cure a violation.
Okay. And you've issued a violation?
Yes.
Okay.
I noticed there was a discrepancy in what the application was asking for, which was merely a number of chickens and one pig. And the report that we have from the town administrator, which identified a lot more animals.
I think that the correspondence from Kathy Barrows refers to 2 pigs, 27 rabbits, 7 chickens, 2 ducks,
Yeah.
which is more than some chickens and
And a
a
pig.
pig.
And
Yeah.
Two pigs.
Right.
That or somebody had lots of Hassenpfeffer.
But that isn't even rabbit.
But if,
Well, I mean, they've got 28 rabbits. 16 if the rabbits have no water. I mean, you know.
It would seem to me that prior applications have permitted chickens, 6 chickens in an appropriate coop
Right.
in a residential district. I don't think we've ever dealt with pigs, rabbits and ducks in the residential district. It's not...
What is the
Are they all
ordinance?
pets? Are they all pets, or is it a farm?
It's more like a mini farm.
A mini farm? Do we have a conditional use for mini farm in the residential district? I don't think so.
A mini farm?
Yeah, I've not. Well, I mean,
What administrative approval do you have? What administrative approval power do you have as zoning administrator to approve livestock? Is it limited to chickens?
It's limited to fowl.
Oh, okay. And then otherwise, the applicant would have to come before the board and have a conditional use approval?
Yes, conditional use.
Okay.
But since they haven't asked for a continuance, does that mean that they're just, do we have to just go on what is here?
Yep. I mean, they've applied. They've
They've
submitted their
applied. Oh,
information to
right.
the board, and that they've indicated that they
Okay, I was curious.
want this information to
Yeah.
suffice.
Okay.
Have they been in touch with you? And did they ask what would happen if they weren't, if they didn't show? Are they aware of what the
Yes, sir.
rules and regs are?
just on the chicken front, administratively, if you had approved chickens and not the other animals, we have a 50-foot requirement from adjacent dwellings or structures, not properties. Are there chickens as it exists? I can't tell from these maps or this documentation whether their chickens are 50 feet away from the neighbour's property or whether it's...
I'm not sure if they are, but the properties are large enough so that they could be.
It could be done.
On the map outline, is that just empty land or is there a house on it?
A 13.1 and 2 is this one person's property, is that right?
But there's
Two
not a house
houses on
on
it though, isn't there? There's 2 houses on that? One behind the other?
Are we able to consider this letter from Kathy Barrows? I should know this by now, but if it's not sworn, do we consider it correspondence?
We get to consider any evidence that we choose. The standard is really the relaxed. We are allowed to, I'm trying to recall the statute, we are recalled to rely on evidence in a manner that is consistent with the nature of our proceedings. So I believe that we're able to accept, and we have in the past accepted, written testimony.
Just a technical question. Would this letter be considered under oath or not under oath?
It's not notarized.
It'd probably not be under oath, such that Ms. Barrows may not have standing to appeal the matter before us, but we accept lots of information from lots of different sources. It's the party status folks who need to have been sworn. So Ms. Barrows wouldn't have party status and couldn't claim party status.
My feeling is we should probably not consider the letter now anyway and just stay focused on the application, which speaks to nothing more than chickens and 1 pig. The rest is a zoning issue, is it not?
That is the issue, is
I mean, it's a violation, and you have to deal with that.
But this application has come before us on the basis of a violation notice that's already been issued. The applicant is attempting to rectify a violation by applying to us for approval to have a pig and chicken.
So he's appealing the violation?
So
Yeah, it's odd. It doesn't seem like it's an appeal of the violation.
it's not an appeal of the notice, it's a...
It's not, I offered having them apply as a cure to the
Yeah.
violation.
And then that makes sense. If the applicant acknowledges that they're in violation, it'd be silly for them to appeal the violation. The cure would be to get the conditional use that would be required under the ordinance,
Which is what they're...
which is
Which is what this application is doing. Can I just go, Kathy Barrows is
She's the animal control officer.
she's the animal control officer for the town or for the state?
Town.
For the town, okay.
Well, I have to say, I understand that smell is an issue here, and I'm a little surprised that no neighbors came up given the description in here, and it makes me a little bit skeptical of the seriousness of that situation.
Got bit by a rabbit's coat.
Could you speak up a little bit, please, Brian?
I've had communications with some of the neighbors, but they didn't submit testimony.
And they all, did they know, they all knew there would be a hearing tonight? And they don't know that the applicants were not showing?
That's correct.
So if they were interested, they would have been here. I still feel that we should look at just the chickens and the pig. That's all that's on that application.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I mean, they
Rabbits,
can go
too.
talk to Brian about the chickens because the chickens have an approval process
Right.
outside of our board. They have an administrative approval process.
The swine does not, though.
No, not the pig, not the rabbits.
And I also think that, I mean, we could look at it exceptionally narrowly and just say, 6 chickens, 1 pig, or whatever it is, which is what they've applied for, but we do have correspondence before us that implies that there's a farm there, or a mini farm. I mean, there's a lot of rabbits, there's a lot of...
But that first, doesn't that have to go through the zoning administrator first? You have to act on the rabbits and the ducks and the second pig. And at some point, if the applicant wants to do something about them, then we'll deal with it.
So,
I've already given them a violation for having rabbits.
And you may have to give them a second violation, and whatever happens in law, I don't know. But,
so
Well,
do we give them approval or consider approval for 1 pig? Is that what you're
well, that's what he's
suggesting?
asking. That's what he's asking for.
So you wouldn't give
Wow.
them 2 pigs?
No, I
Only
would,
asking
he's
for 1.
asking for 1, that's
Yeah.
all we should do.
Okay.
If we want to give him,
The applicant, though, has the burden to supply the board the information to make an informed decision that the proposed use fits within the conditional use criteria, and I don't have nearly enough information from the
Right.
applicant to do that.
I'm not saying
And
we
if
should
the
approve
applicant-
it.
Right, and if the applicant hasn't met his burden,
Right.
it loses. I'm trying to give applicants the nature of the benefit of the doubt, but
Yeah. And the applicant is not in attendance
it's just too
to
much doubt.
to explain it. I mean, quite clearly, if we vote it down, the applicant's at liberty to reapply and come back before the board and provide more information.
There is a rule that an application that comes before the board and that is rejected has to undergo substantial revision before it can be resubmitted. Otherwise, you just get people churning through applications as the board changes over, and they just want another bite at the apple. So, if we deny the application, they won't be able to reapply with a substantially similar application, which may be fine, but that's the rule.
So I would consider making a motion to approve this application, but for the information of the board, I'm going to vote against it.
Yeah, can I just broadly, let's talk about swine for 1 second. I don't believe we have ever approved, in my memory, and maybe before, ever approved swine in a residential district, or pigs in a residential? Conceivably, I mean, some people do treat, I don't know, forget the brand or the breed, but some of them are treated as pets. You hear occasionally, the pot belly, thank you, Vietnamese pot belly, occasionally is treated as a pet, but you hear of people in sort of high-rises in Manhattan having them. But I think that's when the thing's on a leash or a lead and it's behaving like a dog.
Well, it's indoors,
And it's indoors.
yes.
Okay.
They don't have it.
You know,
It's
I
kind of
had that
conditions.
question myself. Is there a definition for a pet? Because we said indoors,
Inoffensive animals.
a what?
It's dogs, cats, or similar small and inoffensive animals.
Yeah, it would just seem, take a guess that a distinction would be for non-agricultural use. In other words, you couldn't raise a pet pig if you planned to eat it. But the one criteria concerning whether it lives indoors or outdoors, what if someone says, well, the dog that I have lives out in the doghouse?
Reminds me of that old Michael Moore movie, Pets or Meat.
Huh?
Remember
Pets or Meat?
Pets or Meat, the Michael Moore movie.
Pet-
It's
I
got to
didn't
be
see-
one or the other.
Yep.
The only person that I can think that we may have voted for was on Maple Street, that he could keep goats.
Oh, at the end of, yeah.
Yeah,
Was
But
that residential?
He had land
Or
all
rural
around
residential?
it,
I
too.
don't know.
He did, but he
End
had,
of Maple Street. I think Maple Street, that's rural residential.
I mean, it's rural.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
whether that's what it's zoned as.
His
or not,
place-
I don't know.
butted up against the park, I think.
On the opposite
Correct.
side of the street.
Yeah.
Yes. It's on Guildford Street.
Yeah.
On the
Guildford Street and
corner of
Maple.
Guilford and Maple,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
So I have, looking for a motion, I believe it's
I made it.
proposed.
Okay.
Looking for seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favour of application 2011-131?
Aye.
Those against?
Nay.
Right.
Nay.
Abstained? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion fails. 150. 151. Is that right? 151. Any other business?
Yeah, I was wondering if it would be possible if we could, since we have a couple minutes left, talk about the possibility of how we're going to get together with the planning board and when in October, and we thought if we would do it in October to be able to do the joint meeting, and I don't know if you've approached anyone.
I approached the planning department. I spoke to Rod and asked Rod to raise it as a matter with the planning commission. I'm not sure whether it came up at the last meeting or not.
No, it
I don't
didn't.
know. I didn't.
No. 'cause
Then,
I was behind the camera, it didn't.
May I contribute as a planning
Absolutely.
commissioner?
Yeah. Good point.
Where-
Both camps.
It would be, in my view, more constructive to wait until after work on the town plan and the contingency issues with the flood is finished. Because those are taking up a lot of the planning commission's time. And the last time we did this meeting, which was almost a year and a half ago, what came out of it afterwards was a good meeting where we were able to take suggestions from the DRB, figure out what we didn't disagree on, and, boom, like 13 things you guys thought were a good idea. We rattled them off.
Yep.
And after we do this, we're going to take a new look at all of the zoning districts. So that concept would fit in well with what we're doing now. We've already seen some things fall by the wayside with the town plan. It just feels like it's taking forever.
What is I got
It's next year.
two observations. What is the time?
Is it?
What is the time scale for completing the town plan?
That I don't know.
Okay. And then secondly, there are items outside of zoning that I would like to get addressed, in particular subdivision regulations and also PRD, PUD regulations that we deal with on a regular basis.
Well,
I mean,
no reason we can't do them. I just giving you an idea of what's going on.
their agenda is the planning commission agenda is heavy.
Not that it's heavy, but I think it's pressing.
Brian,
I wouldn't want us to have our meeting together and then not be able to have the next meeting where the planning commission can take action. That's sort of what I'm getting at. Because if we have our meeting and go right back to the town plan of flood issues, I'd worry that the DRB's contributions might get lost.
What do we have as the DRB that might be of some urgency to,
Well, obviously, we had with the last select board shot down the fluvial erosion. I mean, a lot of what happened during Irene may not have had happened if that ordinance had been passed and if people wouldn't have had the buildings where they were. I mean, how can we base our judgment on where it can go, if it's in the floodplain or if it's not, or, there's got to be something. I mean, if we're going to wait a whole year, then, I guess we have to.
Well, I'll say this, if it's the concern of the DRB that the planning commission reopen the fluvial erosion zone, I think Gary already wants to do that.
I know he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but we do actually have very current, in the book, we have very current flood hazard regulations. They're 2007 current. And it's not as if we, fluvial erosion aside, it's not as if, I mean, there are other sections of the zoning code that are history.
now, have we, just so when the time comes, do we have all of that stuff extracted and we go into a meeting with the planning commission with a very precise agenda for what we're looking for? I don't want to have a meeting like this and just be talking in general.
I think the way the last meeting worked, which is probably close on 2 years ago now, actually, it might have been August,
Yeah.
worked really well because it was a fairly open. I mean, there were some topics, but it was a fairly open and free-form discussion between us as a board or board members and them, and the net result of it was that there was, as you said, I think it was 13 or so changes got pushed through that perhaps wouldn't have done.
What topics do we have in mind right now? I mean, we know the flood, the flood zoning is an issue. They know that. Everybody in Vermont knows that now. What else?
Signs.
Well, if I were voting, I'd say the subdivision regulations from 1968
Yes.
that we have, for very good reason, utterly ignored in applications before this board because they don't work as a subdivision regulation. They don't work as the standard for road improvements. They're not. They don't reflect the current state of
okay,
affairs.
just taking your word for it that those need looking at. Do we have it very specifically what it is in those regs that need?
I don't.
What have we run up against? I can't remember.
No, I would say just a simple thing. Sorry, a simple thing would be say minor subdivision. There's a process laid out for minor subdivision, which starts with the sketch thing and then goes on to the first meeting and on to the second meeting, and we do that all in one now. Someone comes before us with a minor, we just bump all three of those processes into one. Now, sometimes that's to the applicant's advantage, and other times it may not be. But that, for example, could be cleaned up. We're, I won't say we're bucking the system, but we have, in the last few years, just through good common sense, pushed all those into one meeting, where we have a non-contentious minor subdivision.
And that needs to be spelled out
in the book. If you were to an applicant subdividing and you were to not seek advice, you would prepare in a different way than, because it's asking you to prepare in a different way than really you're required to do. So there's things like that there's pages of the book that could be redlined and. And Craig probably, if you go into major subdivision, it's he's.
All right. I'm not opposed. I mean, I'm all for having a meeting. I just want it to be.
I think you should resurrect your email, because if I recall correctly, you drafted the email of those topics from.
I did have a
couple
while
years
ago.
I'll look in my mail.
Yeah, I have it probably a year ago.
And then the other on my my list would be removing PUDs from the zoning amendment process. So we still have that process. If you want to establish a PUD, you have to amend the bylaws. So you have to get a meeting with the planning commission, you have to get a meeting with the select board, you have to get a meeting with the DRB, and then all three of those bodies, well, really not the planning commission, the select board and the DRB have to approve. And I've always chafed at having zoning decisions be political. And
So we're building a list here. That's what I was.
Right, yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. You're right.
Is anybody writing this down?
Sorry.
It's on record.
It's on record.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on record.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, those two topics alone, in fact, just one of those topics would warrant a full hour of a meeting with the planning commission and take the entire time.
Okay.
If we got into it.
So then it's worth having a meeting and not worrying about the flood control immediately.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say one other thing. There would be no harm in, aside from the potential of a lot of permit applications related to flood damage coming before us. We can invite the planning commission here to the DRB meeting. If we have one application like we had, or two like we had tonight, I'm not sure what's panning out. There isn't any harm in having them join us, rather than going the other way and interfering with their existing working calendar. I mean,
Of course, Gary might disagree with me completely.
No,
There's always
I
that
don't know.
too.
I have a question, because there was so much damage done by the hurricane, will any of the businesses that were damaged, would they come before us to rebuild?
All of them.
All of them will?
Well, I say all of them. Everyone is now required to. Everyone?
Most of those permits will be administrative.
Yeah. Everyone will have to apply for a permit, whether it's administratively approved, in which case it doesn't come to us.
Right.
And we don't know how many, but the majority of them will probably be administratively
there's a
approved. But there's a possibility
possibility that
that
some
some will come before us
Yeah.
because Brian feels that he can't administratively improve it.
28 Williams Street will come before it.
William Street?
28 Williams, David Parker's.
That's
building.
Parker's building.
Yeah. And do all those permits, all those applications for land development need to conform to the flood hazard area regulations?
If the building is substantially damaged, they have to bring it into conformance, and that's a 50% of the assessed value and repair costs.
Okay.
Below that, they're grandfathered.
Okay. So 50%, huh?
Are there any others you're aware of right now?
No, right now.
Church Street, or down?
It's difficult to tell how much their damage is right now.
When did, I heard someone say, but I haven't been down there to look, did actually the whetstone change its course down by 28 William Street?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. that's
And so, but now that lot then, so now that the whetstone goes through the lot instead of being a boundary?
Yes, but I believe they're going to reconstruct something closer to the original
Oh,
stream bed.
The Agency of Natural Resources at this point in time is permitting stream beds to be returned to the original course, where reasonable. You can't put it somewhere else, but if it's a question of, in the case of 28 Williams, it may well be put back or contained back to where it was originally.
Well, that's not our decision, I guess.
No, not at all. Okay, any other business? Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favour? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
32 minutes.
32.
Not quite beating your record, Mr. Neskovich, but nearly.
So where do we